This video is going to cover the performance section in the Georgia Standards, going over 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. If our students are going to be exceptional musicians, then they will need to have practice on a specific instrument. Some students might bounce around between several different instruments, and that is totally okay, but it's really important that they have exposure to at least one instrument so that they know how to make music, not just learn about it in the classroom. In the 6th grade, there are specific standards for performing, and these include singing, performing, and reading and notating. So for that first category, singing in 6th grade, the Georgia Standards requires that 6th grade students are able to sing accurately with good breath control and attention to tone quality throughout the vocal range. So what this means is students need to know how to control their voices. They need to have tone quality, not just the correct notes, and know how to control their breathing. They also want students to be able to sing with expression and sing music of diverse genres and cultures with appropriate representation of cultural style. So as a teacher, this would be something really major to focus on. In at least every unit, you would want to have some representation of a distinct culture that maybe would not immediately come to mind, or maybe is not the most premier European art songs that a lot of us may have learned about in college. We want to expose all of our students in middle school to different cultures, different genres, different sounds, so that they have a total appreciation of what music is. And this should be happening even in 6th grade. So, given those specifics, it may not be super surprising that actually in 7th and 8th grade, there is no distinction between those abilities. All middle schoolers should be able to do this. Now, this doesn't mean that your program shouldn't change between those 3 grades. So, as an individual teacher in a school, we want to have very specific goals for each grade that can change so that the students can grow through the program. So while those standards can be true of each grade, there still should be an upward motion as students become more familiar with diverse genres, styles, with singing, with breath control, with all of these things, right? So an example of that could be in the 6th grade, you could choose a song for them to work on singing that has a diverse style, such as maybe some Jamaican music. This music is fun and upbeat and exposes students to a new kind of singing and making music, but should be relatively easy to pick up on dialect and style. By the time you get to the 8th grade, we could be working on students singing in French, right? So there could be songs that are completely sung in French. You could work on dialect and style in a completely different language that students have never heard before. Well, they probably have heard some French, but probably never spoken any or sung for sure. So that would be a great way to edge students up to a higher level of cultural accuracy and exposure. In a similar way, the standards for performing on an instrument are identical for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and they read as follows. Perform on at least one instrument accurately and independently, alone and or in a small or large ensemble with appropriate posture, playing position, technique, and expression. Play by ear simple rhythms, melodies, and harmonic accompaniments. Perform music of diverse genres and cultures with appropriate representation of cultural style. So it's those 3 check marks. But again, you want your program to build up from 6th through the 8th grade. So students shouldn't be doing the same thing for 3 years because, first of all, this can be boring for you as a teacher, it can be boring for the student, and the student won't grow a ton after that first 6th grade year. So you'll want to intentionally place easier music for your 6th graders and more challenging music for your 8th graders. And this would probably need to be assessed based on the classroom. So after you've spent a few weeks with your 6th graders, you can figure out how comfortable are they with 16th notes and dotted notes and some of the trickier rhythms, and see if you need to build up to any of those. Another thing that can be tricky is just fast tempos. So you could place some of those in the 8th grade, or a medium speed of certain things in the 7th grade. But all of it should be building up. You should be able to have maybe 10 things on a list that are more difficult, that are happening in the 8th grade, that are not happening in the 6th grade, so that students can work up to that and feel like they are making progress on their instrument. The final part of the performance section in the standards is the reading and notating music section. And this section is going to be really important, especially as these students move on to high school and want to become pretty proficient in a particular instrument or singing. It's also just a good life skill for students to know how to read music, depending on when they might need that in various extracurricular activities that they're in, or all that kind of thing. So this is going to be the exact same as the other levels of performance. They are the same for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So let's talk about just a few examples of activities and assignments you could give with these particulars. So your students are going to need to be able to identify and utilize standard notation symbols. So pitch, rhythm, dynamics, form, tempo, articulation, all the things that they see on a sheet of paper, they should be able to identify and use when they're playing. They need to read standard notation in various meters. So they need to understand what a triplet is in 4/4 time, what a triplet is in 2/2 time, and so on. Anything they should be able to understand. They need to be able to sight read simple melodies in treble clef. So that would be on whatever instrument they have chosen to learn, whether your school offers piano, keyboard, guitar, band instruments, any of that. Your student should be able to sight read in the treble clef. They need to be able to identify bass clef notation. So a lot of students may play an instrument that is mostly in the treble clef, so not all middle school students will be able to sight read in bass clef notation by the time they leave the middle school, because this would be more involved and they probably haven't gotten much practice if they are working on that individual instrument. They also should be able to use standard notation or digital software to record their musical ideas and the musical ideas of others. Digital software often is really ultra easy to use, especially these days when everything is so accessible. You can seriously just record something and it'll automatically notate things for you with certain programs. So I would recommend students practice manually writing down musical lines and ideas and notating things that they hear orally in the classroom. So an important assignment might be to play a simple melody once or twice a week and have students write that down as they're hearing it, so that they can connect what they hear with what they see on the page and know exactly how that would be notated. This will help them read better as well if they're thinking through the details of sharps and flats and location on the page.